Today, we're getting the insights from Chel Wong, an award-winning video game music composer. Chel is also a professor at Northeastern University teaching video game, music, and audio. Chel, thanks for taking the time today.
Thanks for having me.
I saw that you had some experience speaking at GDC. Did you go to this year's GDC?
I did. I spoke at 2022, I think.
How was your experience this year?
Pretty good. It's always kind of like, it's getting really expensive, so I'm not sure if I can keep justifying to go, but I honestly want to submit a talk next year or whatever, so I don't think this will be my last time going, but it's just so expensive. But I had a good time seeing friends and such.
Do you have any tips for people who are trying to network and use GDC as for that kind of thing?
I have so many tips. First things first, never pay for a pass. Ever, 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 ever pay for a pass. Don't do it. There's so many ways to get a free pass. You can also just go to San Francisco and just talk to people hanging out in Yerba Buena Gardens, which is just next door. That's where everyone hangs out. The park's free. You don't have to go inside. And there's a lot of people who hang out at like various hotel bars. I don't know. The biggest thing is go to Yerba Buena Gardens, and that's like really all you need to do. The pass is GDC is honestly the excuse for everyone to gather in one place. But the actual expo, like there are definitely talks that are worth seeing and such if you want to. But there's a really complicated system of when you can go to talks and whatever. And if you really really want to go to a talk, sometimes people will lend you a pass. But like honestly, just don't pay for a pass. You can volunteer for the CA program, which is really, really great. I did that during the COVID years. I don't think I can do that in person just because of my disability, but they're really great and they're accommodating people. And you get to meet a lot of really great people there. That's a really good source of networking. And that's how they're just other things. There are scholarships. There are other people that are like expoing that you might be able to like volunteer for, and they can get you a badge. So there are different options. I've got a GDC like I think for free in 6 different ways.
I should also mention that you have your own YouTube channel that is full of a bunch of different advice. So that's worth checking out. If you search Chel Wong Audio, you can find it.
Yep, that is me.
You got this professor gig at the university. Can you tell me what that's been like?
Yeah, so Northeastern University reached out to me and asked if I would be willing to run a course for basically video game audio and music. And at first I wasn't sure if I was going to take it because it's a lot of work. But one of my best friends in the industry recommended that I do, and she's also a professor. And, everyone just kind of recommended. Also, both my parents went to Northeastern, so I was like, well, so I thought about it. And basically over that summer, I made the majority of this course. And it was really intimidating at first because it's only run for 1 semester and it is like an elective course, but hopefully I'm hoping that I can get a full-time job there as well. But right now we're going to see if this can be offered more, but I really loved it. I had a batch of 9 students and I love and adore them. They're so great and wonderful. And they were really motivated and just so I really think that like as long as I keep up with it, they'll just be my future colleagues in the industry, and so I just want to keep doing it because I'm a yapper. I have a lot to talk about. I got 2 modes: yapping and napping, and as long as I'm not asleep, I can do a lot to teach. And I think it was really helpful for the students because there isn't currently a lot of interdisciplinary courses. So I taught them a lot about music and sound design and implementation, and just squeezing that all in 1 semester is really tricky, but I think we got a lot of good work done. So hopefully I can keep doing that. And if I get hired full time, I can break that into like various courses. So it's not all just one crash course.
Are there any common misconceptions that students have or recurring advice that you end up giving a lot?
Let me think about that. Misconceptions. I don't know if there are any misconceptions, but when I teach, I'm a very practical person. I think busy work, like, all your dumb worksheets growing up, I don't really like that. I think there's a lot of merit to a lot of different things, but all of my assignments are very, they're all practical and like, oh, okay, we're just like, your assignment, your homework is write video game music. It's like you're gonna write style of like an NES where you can only do 3 parts. But I also like to weave in a lot of like business and networking advice within my course because I am a working freelancer in the industry, and so like I'm up to date with what things are actually needed. So I feel like right now it's not the students that have any misconception. I think it's mostly just they don't know what they don't know, and so I have to teach them everything that I can in like such a short amount of time. And so I think it's just really hard to know what you want to do. I think some things that maybe a student may have a misconception is that like video game audio and music and film audio and music are like similar. They're not. Like obviously they're transferable skills, but I've written for a film before and it's so different, both just the actual practice of it as well as the kind of culture and the workflow of that. So I guess that's kind of like the biggest misconception per se. But
when you're doing video game music, do you spend any time in the game engine with the actual implementation ever?
yeah, so there's kind of two ways to do things. There's in the engine, such as Unity or Unreal or other engines, GameMaker, Godot, such and such. And then there's middleware. So there's Wwise and Fmod. And essentially, I have not actually ever done any Wwise and Fmod on like paid work. I've only ever done things in Unity and Unreal. But Unity's clunky. I don't like Unity's audio system. It's kind of a mess. You have to know how to program certain things, and if you don't know how to program, it's infinitely more work. And there's so many things that I'm just like, come on, Unity, you've been at for so many years. Please, 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 please.
So, would you consider that an essential skill that's worth learning or not for a new composer?
For a composer, I don't know if implementation is essential. For a sound designer, I would say that it would be in your best interest to learn Fmod and Wwise, as they are industry standards, and basically anywhere that would hire a sound designer would know how to use those. And at the indie level, there are definitely some things that sometimes people are averse to using Fmod or Wwise, but I feel like if you know how to use middleware, learning how to do stuff in the engine isn't as bad. But as a sound designer, it's definitely, I would say, essential for Fmod and Wwise. Knowing Unreal is, you can pick it up, and Unity, I don't know. If you know a little code, it goes a long way. But frankly, if I was a sound designer and I was brought on to work on a project, I'd really push for Fmod and Wwise.
When it comes to practicing as a composer, do you have any forms of practice where you sit down without the intention of writing music, but more just to like practice a certain element?
I feel like every time I write a song, I always try and do something that I have either learned about or do something better. I come from a classical background. I went to school to be a music teacher. I was going to be a band teacher. So I have really good aural skills. I wasn't born with perfect pitch, but I got really jealous of a friend and basically just memorized all 12 pitches. So there's a lot of things that I feel like I have really good intuition in terms of writing. But when it comes to mixing and mastering, those are the ones that I'm definitely a lot more, I still am constantly trying to improve. So I would say that, like, if I have a project that I'm working on, I am going to use, whatever parameters I'm working on to write my song, and through that song, try to make it as best as possible. I take feedback from who I can, and people tend to give really good feedback. With when I don't have work, sometimes I will just, especially in my early days, I remember doing a lot of game jams. I remember producing like an EP of like 6 different tracks, just like trying new things. I was like, I'm gonna do different genres. I did drum and bass. I did like lo-fi hip hop. I just messed around. And I run a charity album. And so every year for my charity album, which is for able gamers, I always try and do something new and different and push myself. And I feel like this year I've done something wildly different and way more production heavy in electronic than I've done normally in the past. So I would say if you're trying to practice anything in terms of music, the best advice is to just go and do as much as possible. When I was doing a bunch of game jams, like you want to make good work, but you also can't be married to it. And there is such a thing as good enough. And like, going back to like some of my old game jams, there's some things that like, why is this panned 100% to the right? Because I was using my laptop speakers. I don't know. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I don't know shit. So so currently I feel like it's a matter of, it's just do more. You can tweak as much as you want. You can tweak forever, but just write as much as you can. And that process of doing things over and over, starting, writing, like producing, mixing, and then if you get to mastering, like just doing that over and over, it becomes so much more helpful than like trying to nitpick one song and make it perfect.
Interesting. So you found a lot of value in trying out different styles, even though you never really did them again, just kind of a one-off style.
So some people find a niche in a genre that they like to write in, and I think that's great. I actually really recommend that. But I myself, as much as I like maybe want to or should niche into a genre, part of what I find really fun is just hearing a genre and hearing some song. And like I have a classical background. I know music theory. I don't use my brain to write. I just think, does this bop? Does this fuck? And then I just kind of let it go. And sometimes I hear something and I go, oh wow, that was really cool. And then I use my oral skills and I use my music theory, and I can try and decipher like, what was this really cool thing that I heard and thought about. So while I may not necessarily be a master at like every genre of music, there are definitely things that I am like more comfortable with. I think part of what's really fun is just that exploration and being able to try something new and being able to be like, how do I do that? Like, what do I do in this or that, and how do I make this better? And I think that's just what makes it really beautiful for me. And not everyone wants to do that, and not everything I click with forever. I'd be like, well, one and done. But I don't think there's any harm in like exploring different genres and trying new things.
Sure. Sure. I think that versatility always comes in handy. How about the software? What kind of software do you use the most?
So I use MuseScore because it's free and it's great. And anytime I have problems with MuseScore, I simply go, it's free. And then I use Reaper, which is it's like $60 for a non-commercial license. If you're making over X dollars, you have to pay more money. But what's really great about Reaper is, one, its 60-day free trial period never ends. So it's 60 days, and it just says like a 5-second little window that says this is not like a license. Please pay for it eventually. And two is it can do everything. Anything any other DAW can do, Reaper can do. I did not know any other DAW beforehand, and so I asked advice like, what DAW should I use? And people were like, oh, Reaper is inexpensive and can do everything. And so like, while it might not be as like upfront, there might not be as much that is like intuitive per se, whatever. Like, it's the only one I've known. I just learned as I go. And anytime I'm like, oh, I wish I could do this, and people go, it can. I go, what? And then I simply learn. And there are things that you can program. It can do everything. But that's basically it. So I use notation software. I used to use Finale. I don't like Finale. Now it's dead. So
Reaper, it's not the most popular, but everyone I've talked to who does use it is a very big fan of it.
Reaper.
Yeah.
Okay. I let my students use whatever DAW they use, and I basically go, the only one I'll ever judge you for is Pro Tools, because even though it's an industry standard, it crashes all the time. And while I've not worked in Pro Tools, I have been a session recording musician, and then just be like, hold on a second, Pro Tools crashed. And you just like sit there, and it's just like, okay, well, what? You can also just make Reaper skinned into Pro Tools ugly interface and have all of the hotkeys rebound to all of your Pro Tool things if you really want to, and it just won't crash, and it'll be cheaper. Anyways, any other DAW is fine.
I'm curious, how does MuseScore fit into your process?
So, because I am a sheet music thinky person, um, I basically, I guess I type out the notation in a score for most songs. Occasionally I don't, if there's a particular reason. Actually, the most recent song I did, I didn't, because it was very digital, kind of electronic style, and I didn't really have specific melodies that I was trying to do first. But typically, when I write a song, I have a melodic idea, and I just kind of explore that. Like very, 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 very occasionally, I have a full song in my head. And I just like, when that happens, it's like, yay, this is the best thing ever. But more often than not, you just have to kind of figure things out as you go. And so I feel like I have a rough idea of like what kind of vibe do I want, and what kind of instruments do I want, and then what kind of melody am I going to do, and through that melody I then maybe have an idea of like what do I want for the harmony. And so I just kind of write the music in sheet music, and then I can also add instruments here and there as I go. Once that's all written, I export the MIDI, I drop it into Reaper, I delete all the weird extra information in the MIDI, and then I have to do my best to humanize it. Ideally, if you are able to perform things on a keyboard like a MIDI controller, that's great. I'm a trombonist. I am ass at piano, so but I do my best to humanize things, and you know, if I have the budget to hire a performer, that's really wonderful. So occasionally I'd be like, oh, I'm like, there's a budget for a guitarist, and I'll hire a guitarist, because like shredding an electric guitar solo is going to be way better than anything I can program in MIDI. Like I could put a ton of work and energy into making something sound as good as possible, or I can just pay someone else to make an authentically really good guitar solo or whatever. Sometimes it's just better to do that way, but typically it's notation, copy the MIDI, put it into Reaper, give it the instruments, do all the producing, humanize things, and automating the MIDI and various parameters to make it sound less artificial.
You're the first person I've talked to who starts with sheet music.
There's a few others.
To talk to them next. Are you ever delivering the sheet music, or are you typically rendering out the audio and providing that?
I am actually in the process of giving my sheet. I have to edit it still because it's designed for, you know, putting it into a DAW. But I'm actually editing some of my scores now for Whisker Squadron, so that my publisher Materia can actually make like sheet music books out of it and possibly sell, which I think would be pretty neat. Most people in official capacities don't care. Sometimes people, I remember actually there was a time sometimes people would be like, hey, can you send me, like fans will be like, oh, can you send me the sheet music for this or whatever? Or someone made a cover song that I wrote. I'm like, oh my God, that's really like, you know, every time people do covers or whatever, I'm honestly one of the most touching things ever. Seeing fan art for your games is like the best. So I love that. And I think, you know, if anyone ever covers my song, I'm always like, oh, wow, like this is really great. And there's once that I sent someone my sheet music for a song because some of the chords were like a little off, and then they edited that. And it's just like, oh, that it's nice, but not usually in an official capacity unless it's for a recording session, which I've not done much.
You mentioned like if you're paying a guitar player for your music, does that come out of your own funds that the game is providing you, or does the game developer typically fund that themselves?
Well, it depends. Typically, you know, budget matters. If the game has a big enough budget and there is enough of a reason to, like, if you can convince the devs that like this is something that is really going to help, then they might have room for that. But that's, it's whatever. I usually try to, if I'm doing an hourly rate, then I would have to like discuss with the devs and be like, can we budget for this? But a lot of times I'll also do kind of like full contracts for the full game, at least for like this amount of work, and I'll price in a way that like if they say yes to a number or we negotiate to something, it will budget for instrumentalists or whatever. And I usually talk up front with them and be like, this is the price for the contract for the whole game and all this, material. Of course, if things get added more, then we discuss that. We make addendums. But I will probably be upfront about being like, this is the cost. It will cover the cost for musicians. But that's sort of something that you discuss in a way. And I ideally would love for the team to, but depending on if I'm doing a whole contract and the number is not high enough for me to justify also hiring musicians, I might not. I might, depends.
When it comes to your instruments in your DAW, like your plugins and virtual instruments, are there some favorites you have?
I'm not gonna lie, I use a lot of stock plugins because back when I started, I had garbage, and Reaper does not have a lot of plugins, which is part of why it's cheaper. But like the stock EQ and compressor has done me a lot of work. As for favorites, at some point I bought the complete edition, like the middle completes, not the full expensive one. I got Swing and Swing More to work on Kine. Actually, I have a spreadsheet I can look at. But one thing I love for like a drum machine is XO. I don't remember who makes XO, but it's really cool. And it's a really fantastic drum machine that has like a very interesting visualizer that lets you like look around. I'm trying to think what else. I won a Fab Filter bundle that they're just really good. I use Massive a lot. I don't own Serum. I know a lot of people really like that. I've also used some Absinthe. Oh, geez. I don't know. There's just... I'm not some... I use a lot of Isotope stuff because I've also gotten a lot of bundles. So I've used a lot of Neutron and Ozone and... what's the vocal one? I've used some... Oh, the vinyl one? Like the free vinyl... the free vinyl from Isotope is really good. Valhalla has really, really excellent plugins, some of which are free, but most of like the reverbs are like $50. They never go on sale because they're always fixed at 50, but that's like a really solid price. So a lot of people swear by those. The Sound Toys bundle I use a lot for like sound design, but there's some. I use Raum a lot, RAUM by Native Instruments.
I love that one.
A little plate, Raum. Neoverb I don't really use, I'm not going to play. Pro R I've used actually. Pro R is really good for parallel processing the reverb. Sometimes I just slap a reverb on a track, but I feel like Pro R is really good for like having it on its own track, and then you just routing. You just route to that channel. You can cut that fucking around. I don't know. I'm not as much of a gearhead as some other people are. And personally, I find that like there's a really easy way of getting like way too granular with things. I find that there are more plugins than I know how to use, and there are more plugins than I frankly like need. Occasionally, I wish I had maybe something, and occasionally I can justify like paying money. Like once a year, I'll maybe justify buying a bundle or a big library if I feel like I need it. But in general, I just stick with the things I know. Let's see. Nebula by Soundspot is one that does several things like flanger and chorus and delay. It's kind of one of those weird catch-all ones. Expand 2. I once wrote a song using only Expand. J37 tape is a cool tape saturator. I don't know. Quadravox is cool. Oh, there's some really, really good free synths, like Helm. What else is Helm is a super good free synth that I think is so worth it if you're like, even if you have a lot of paid things, it never hurts to have. But
Yeah, Helm is from Matt Title, the
Yeah,
same guy who made Vital.
yeah, Vital's also really good.
How about for sound design and sound effects? Are you taking real recordings and manipulating them, or do you ever use synths and stuff for that too?
Well, it depends on the vibe, I guess. Like if it's trying to be more grounded in reality, then you'll probably want to have libraries that are, grounded in reality. Sometimes I record my own sounds. A lot of times I just, every year there's like a free bundle for sound effects. I actually need to get this recent one. But there's always like lots of free sound effect libraries from uh, like GDC. There's, I think it's the Sonus bundle. There's various places like there's freesound.org where sometimes you can find a sound if you need it as a base layer. If you're just using the sound unchanged, you will probably want to credit you should credit who the recording is from. But a lot of times if it's like, if you're just using it as a layer and it's like, there's a lot of things, and like sometimes you just want a layer and it's uh, whatever it is. So occasionally I will record my own sounds. If it's synthetic, I will use synths. And in general, I will use a lot of processing. So like I worked on a game called She Dreams Elsewhere, which is still in production. It's very much like in this sort of dream world space, but it's sort of dark and it's sort of, I don't know. It's very much a vibe. And so a lot of my like sound design in that is like kind of like a lot of reverb. It's sort of synthy. I don't know. It's hard to describe. Other ones are more like, oh, you're colliding with it. If a metal ship is colliding into a wall, you're going to want more like impact sound. So it's just really what the project calls for. If it's really grounded, if it's like cute or goofy, if it's serious, if it's got guns, if it's got magic, everything changes. And part of being a sound designer is just doing it all.
Out of all your projects, is there any one that holds a special place in your heart or was the most fun to work on?
I mean, I feel like the cringe answer is like, oh, they're all my babies. The ones that actually launched and people know about are probably the ones that I put more effort in. Kine was my first game that ever launched. Worked with that with Gwen Frey. She's fantastic, and that's obviously always going to be really special to me. It was my, I started. I was brand new, and I was working on another project too, but it was like much smaller, and so like Kine with Gwen's experience, she ported this game onto. She launched this game on like 4 simultaneous platforms, and then a month later on Stadia, a 5th platform. I don't know how. She's crazy. I'm not crazy. She's a boss. And that one was like, it's about instruments trying to become famous, and she kind of wanted to find someone who was like new. And I'm like also play trombone, and I like puzzle games, so it's just like, wow, this is like a match made in heaven. I'm really, really proud of the work on Whisker Squadron that came out onto 1.0 relatively recently. And I'm not afraid to brag about the rest of my team. That game looks amazing. It feels great. Like, the rest of my team is like, I think I did good work. I like the songs that I wrote. But like, it's so good. The rest of my team is so good, and I'm not afraid to brag for them. I will say that oddly enough, or sadly enough, maybe the most well-known game I worked on, and the one that has the most plays on Spotify, is Only Cans, which is a shitpost that some friends of mine and I made over like the winter break, and it's so stupid. And at the same time, I was gonna do more work on that, but and then I had a test for another job. Like I had a job application. I didn't get that job, unfortunately, but so I ended up not actually doing that much work for Only Cans, and like whatever I did was like, it was pretty fast. I was like, all right, what's the vibe? Let's bang these out here and there. And now it's like, okay, music that I worked on for very little is some of the most listened to things on Spotify. There are other things here and there that I worked on that, like I worked on a game, and then uh, we parted ways. But the soundtrack I wrote for that game, I'm really proud of, and I have it on my Bandcamp called Wind Riders. So I wrote really great tunes for that one. I'm really proud of.
What about your personal music taste? Like if you're driving in the car, what are you listening to?
Oh God. This is a question that I never really know how to answer very well because there are various songs that I like to listen to. Um, Unfortunately, a lot of the music I listen to is anime openings because I'm cringe. Um, Sometimes I'll listen to game soundtracks. It's actually really hard for me to discover new music because I am using, I do audio for work, so I can't really listen to music while I work. I can't be lo-fi girl doing homework. Um, so sometimes when I'm working on a song, I'll get reference tracks, and then I can discover music that way. Or my roommate will play music that she's got on. But I don't know. Like I guess I could list like some. Do you want albums or artists?
I guess what I was more curious about is like,
Genre?
are you listening to game music and compositions, or are you like listening to pop music? And you already kind of answered that, which is
Yeah,
soundtracks a lot. It sounds like.
but like not. I don't really listen to soundtracks that often. It's like only if like I'm in the mood for it. Like when I'm driving, I've been listening to Dimension 20, and sometimes like I don't know. I have a very eclectic taste in music. There's only a couple of genres that I would say that I like don't like. But like I guess if I really like Loving in Stereo album by Jungle. I like Everything Under the Sun, which is an album by Jukebox the Ghost. Beckett to Mess by Grizzly Bear. I don't know. There's a couple of albums that I think are bangers and some individual songs. Been listening more to I don't know how, but they found me. I don't know. I just listen to whatever, really.
You said Dimension 20. That's the Dungeons and Dragons
Yeah,
channel.
I've been getting really into Dropout. Actually, a friend of mine was hired as a consultant for a future Game Changer episode, which I'm really excited to find out which and how. But yeah, I like Dropout TV. It's like $5 a month, and there's a lot of content. And Game Changer and Make Some Noise, and I've seen most of Dirty Laundry, and now I'm listening to Dimension 20, and I've only heard season 1 of Fantasy High, and I'm currently in season 2 of Fantasy High sophomore year. I'm gonna plan on listening to more. I guess they're really good. I also listened to the Adventure Zone way back when.
Well, before we go, is there anything else you want to plug or share?
Get Whisper Squadron. It is on Steam and PlayStation. It's really great, and I'm not afraid to say that because I just did the Dudes. I think I did a pretty good job, but I think our game is great, and I had a little bit of influence here and there and be like, I think this should change, or I like this part of blah. But like, that's other people's work. So, Whisper Squadron, it's great. Coming out soon, maybe possibly after this episode airs, will be maybe before, maybe after, but I think April 18th, I will be launching the Charity EP Jam's 7th album, which is, I'll tell the theme. It's Sanctuary. So every year we vote on a theme, kind of like a game jam. And so I've been doing this for 7 years now, and we've got a lot of really great submissions for this album. So check that out. It'll be charityepjam.bandcamp.com, and all proceeds go directly to Able Gamers. It doesn't touch my bank account at all. It's literally hooked into their account. So pay what you want. It goes straight to charity. Goes straight to a fantastic organization. But besides Whisker Squadron and the Charity EP Jam, I don't know. Venmo me money. Check out my coffee.
Your website, chelwongaudio.com.
Yeah, I'm Chel Wong Audio everywhere. Yeah, I'm unfortunately on most platforms. I haven't bothered with some. Like, I didn't bother making a Mastodon or whatever, but like I'm on basically every platform.
Well, Chel Wong, It was great talking to you and learning about your process and you. And I wish you the best of luck with everything you do. And let's keep in touch.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.